All right, everyone, let's get the show started. Welcome to our DevOps office hours. It's August 4th, 2021. My name is Eric Osterman, and I'll be leading the conversation. I'm the founder of Cloud Posse. We are a DevOps accelerator, and that means that we help companies own their infrastructure in record time by building it together with your team while showing them the ropes. So if that sounds interesting, head over to cloudposse.com/quiz to get started. Again, that's cloudposse.com/quiz to get started. For those of you new to the call, the format is very informal. My goal is to get your questions answered. So feel free to unmute yourself at any time if you want to jump in and participate. If you're tuning in from our podcast or YouTube channel, you can register for these live and interactive sessions by going to cloudposse.com/officehours. Again, that's cloudposse.com/officehours. We host these calls every week. We'll automatically post a recording of this session to our YouTube channel. So if you enjoy the content and want to support it, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. We'll also follow up with an email so you can share it with your team. So with that said, let's kick it off and go through some announcements here today. First thing is a reminder, August 18th, coming up in a couple of weeks, we have Taylor Dolezal coming back to us from HashiCorp and going to do a demo of the HashiCorp Boundary product. Boundary is HashiCorp's zero trust solution, identity aware proxy solution that's supposedly pretty easy to deploy and get up and running. All right, other announcements. We have a new contractor on the team, Brad. So Brad joined us, and Brad has developed our first SFTP module. So if you need to use the AWS transfer service for SFTP specifically, we have a module for that. We decided that the interface to try and just support the entire AWS transfer family was too complicated. So we just implemented the most popular subset of that, which is SFTP. And that is also published in the registry. The module supports multiple users provisioned. Each user gets its own slice of an S3 bucket. It supports automatic DNS registration or DNS zone delegation, and it supports our security group module, elastic IPs. So it's a pretty rich module. I like the way it turned out. The other thing is it's a very small module. We have previously created a TLS module more for SSH public keys and private keys and sticking those in SSM or ASM. This is now a more generic TLS self-signed cert module. Use case came up for us that a application deployed to Kubernetes needed a access to the private key for signing some internal requests. We looked into using cert-manager for it. I think we didn't see the immediate way of solving this with cert-manager, so we ended up creating a Terraform module for it. And the last announcement is our Terraform Macie module. So Macie v2, HashiCorp released support for Macie v2 a few months ago. We've been working on the Terraform module for that. We just cut the first release this morning, so that's out there. We're currently starting to deploy this at a couple of customer sites. I would expect to see continuous updates to this module like the rest. So Macie is an interesting module. It applies machine learning and figures out what is deployed inside of your S3 buckets. So you know if you are leaking possibly PII or personally identifiable information, or leaking card holder data or PHI. That's what Macie can help you identify. And with some of the compliance benchmarks out there, you need to provably demonstrate that you don't. How do you know that you don't have PII in a particular bucket? For example, that it accidentally was put there by a developer manually. And Macie kind of helps you check off that box. Related to security, I was excited about this announcement. GitHub has come up with a few more canned GitHub Action workflows for taking advantage of, I think I linked the wrong, yeah, this is the wrong link, Andy. We gotta update it, but I do agree with this title. DevOps still rarely done well at scale, concludes report. I don't know, you could almost, the title almost sounds like an Onion article, but it is true. No, so what this is all about is like, so if I go over here to Cloud Posse, go to one of our Terraform modules, like our EKS cluster module, and go over to settings and security and analysis. There's an option to set up various code scanning integrations. And since this is a pretty Terraform heavy audience, they have support for Bridge Crew, which has a free offering, I believe, as well as commercial. But the open source integrations that they're talking about are like TFSec here. So you can just click set up this workflow, and it set up a commit in a new branch, so you can commit this simple workflow based off of TFSec. So it's interesting. I guess it's, there's not really much to it. Do you need this specific UI widget inside of a GitHub security tab to do it? No, you don't. You can literally just copy these workflows in there. But I like it as an open source maintainer and developer, that there's more and more ways for companies like Cloud Posse in the future to get our code out there in front of others. And now Cloud Posse does more Terraform work than GitHub Actions work, but this is a nice way to get your GitHub Actions promoted throughout the GitHub ecosystem. So I can only imagine the number of pulls happening on these images right now. Any other of these workflows stand out? Oh, it has Sneak or Sneak. I've finally heard the canonical way of pronunciating this is Sneak, just in case you guys were wondering.
I've seen StockAuth a lot for web applications testing, vulnerabilities testing. That's
which one were you pointing out?
StackAuth, or what, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's at the bottom right part. Yeah, the third row at the right.
Oh, StackHawk. Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with StackHawk. Cool. All right, so check that out.
So this is, I saw Fortify on there. I know the license for Fortify is really pricey. These are all like, here's how to set it up, but bring your own license. Is that, or is this integration
I'm guessing
with GitHub Marketplace or whatever?
There's a couple, yeah. So security analysis from the marketplace is what it specifically says here. And what I suspect is going on here is that it's free for open source repos, public repos, and that you have to subscribe for private repos. And then there are a few that are open source, specifically like TFSec. Granted, TFSec was just acquired, I forget by who. It came up last week, how to scan for secrets leaking. And I'm sure one of these here is going to scan the repo for telltale signs of secrets and credentials. I don't know if TFSec does that, and that's also just specifically for Terraform. Aquasec would do that, yeah.
No, acquired TFSec.
Oh, Aquasec acquired, gotcha. All right, well, that's the end of my announcements. Anyone else have any interesting announcements from the past week? Oh, I missed one here. No, there's one more. It was brought to my attention, which is nice, is that the official Kubernetes Terraform provider for Kubernetes now supports, what happened here? Now supports custom resources, which previously was not supported. And since Kubernetes you're overwhelmingly inclined to use custom resources for like certificates and for TLS or for external secrets, or it goes on from there. You can now provision those with Terraform as well. And it's just a generic Kubernetes manifest resource, and you specify a data structure here, which represents a standard Kubernetes manifest in HCL form.
I had something I could
Andy,
look at.
fire away.
NSA and CISA, CISA released the Kubernetes hardening guide that they've been working on for a while here. It looks to be pretty good. Gonna be diving into it here at some point. I'll grab the actual PDF because it's a little hard to find, on the website here, but the PDF's, open publication, so I'll just go grab it and put it in.
Yeah, share that in the Office Hours channel and possibly the Zoom chat. Right here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you said you haven't really had a chance to dig through it yet. Oh, this is just no, here we go. You haven't really had a chance to probably dive into it. Have you or anyone anything stand out from this you guys want to highlight?
It has a lot of parallels with the DevSecOps reference design that DISA put out not too long ago. That was supported by the Air Force in their Kubernetes work. It does. It talks a lot about service mesh and stuff. That's all required for hardened Kubernetes.
Okay. All right.
Among many other things, obviously.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up and sharing it. We should probably have some more highlights from it in subsequent office hours. All right. Any other interesting announcements?
Yeah. The AWS podcast just released their announcements podcast like a couple days ago, and I listened to it this morning and yesterday, and there's like tons of stuff that they go over, but one of the things that struck out as most interesting to me was I was Googling for it. I can't find it, but they did mention the podcast. I'm looking at the show notes right now. I can't remember what minute it was, but I'll try to follow up and post something in chat. So Certificate Manager now apparently supports cert-manager and like Let's Encrypt through like Certificate Manager. So not Let's Encrypt, but cert-manager directly through Certificate Manager. So like you can use AWS instead of having to use Let's Encrypt. I think I got that
way.
Right. Yeah, it was.
That's huge. We've been wanting that forever.
Yeah, so it was. It kind
closed.
So I've been looking for it, but I know they went over it because I remember hearing it and being like, wow, because obviously we have a typical, cert manager Let's Encrypt workflow where I work, and so hearing that they were now supporting that, but I'm having kind of a hard time finding it. But they for sure did mention it, so it was really interesting. So I'll try to find it and provide some specific links to that.
Can you dig that up? Because
I'll try to.
The obvious issue I landed on here didn't seem to highlight that is supported.
Yeah, I don't even see it in the show notes, but they've for sure went over it. So when I have a minute, I'll search for that.
All right. Well, thanks for bringing that up. Any other announcements?
For anybody that's had an AWS account for more than, I don't know, 5-10 years, it looks like EC2, or sorry.
Yes.
What is it? EC2 Classic?
Yeah, EC2 Classic.
EC2 Classic is going away.
Yeah, like the version of AWS that launched public cloud as we know it today is going away. This is public cloud without VPCs,
Right.
and all that. And I know from firsthand experience that's how I started using AWS.
Yeah.
When there
Yeah,
was
we got
only-
I think August 15th is the shutdown date, and we're just kind of not scrambling. We were like, we didn't realize some things were that. So we're just
Wow.
quickly moving it. But I mean, like, fortunately, it was like 1 or 2 load balancers or something like that. But
Yeah. And this is
Keep
just a
that in mind.
testament. This is just a testament to AWS, though, and I want to give them some recognition of how few services they shutter at, if at all, and compare that then to like Google Cloud, where every service that I feel like I've actually adopted ends up getting sunset, and it is unnerving to use Google Cloud services from my perspective. So with Amazon,
they do want to change that though. Like they did this big commitment of long-term support on Google Cloud like recently.
oh, they have.
Yeah.
I'm guessing their sales reps were tired of fielding the question. So how do we know you're going to be around for more than two years? So that's interesting. What was I going to say related to that? Can anyone think of other AWS services that have been sunset?
Officially or unofficially? They are not like
Let's
simple
not break
DB is
any
still an
NDAs
option.
here. But yeah. So officially, yeah. Like I'm surprised OpsWorks is still being supported. Surprised Beanstalk is still being supported.
It's in maintenance mode.
Yeah.
Beanstalk is being
Beanstalk-
replaced by a copycat of Cloud Run. They're a new thing, I think.
Reserved
okay.
instances are being sunset.
Reserved instances.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
for the
just
new,
in
because of the new
savings plan
savings
or-
plans and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, RIs, boy, that built, it's crazy when you launch something so complex, it launches a whole industry around buying it. And all these AWS cloud spend tools help you buying RIs. Wow. Okay, well, that's good news.
Oh, never mind.
No,
They're not going away. They're not wanting you to use them very much anymore, but they're not going away.
okay. Is it that they've reversed course or was it a misrecollection?
No, just not reading far enough down the article that I found.
Ah, okay.
Because I had heard about something, so I looked it up. But
all right. Well, let's set the record straight. RIs are not going away. Okay. The industry survives. All right. Other announcements? See here in the chat. SWS, Simple DB. Oh, okay. Yeah. Simple DB. I forgot about that one. I remember trying to use that. The precursor to kind of DynamoDB. And what's SWF?
Simple workflow service.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure I have an ex-client still using Simple DB for a very legacy workload. I
Wow.
could be wrong on this.
Wow.
Like in maintenance mode, it just means it's not gonna get new features.
Mhm.
And if you want any limit increases, it's gonna be a bunch of conversations to get them increased.
Yeah.
But that's it. Like it's still there, you can still use it. AWS is not gonna deprecate it. And
Yeah.
I admire that.
I do admire it. I wonder how bad, I'd be really curious to know behind the scenes kind of how they manage this many services. And yeah, like for a product like Simple DB that's still out there, I wonder, like, are there engineers fully engaged with it still to this day, even though it's in maintenance mode, or are these products able to run themselves for a certain amount of time? All right. Well, I think that's the end of the announcements. Now, usually this is where I would go into questions, except for I didn't have any questions in the Office Hours channel to go over today. So any questions, any problems you guys are trying to solve? Let's turn it to the floor and figure out how to solve it.
I have one.
Go for it, Andrew.
Geodesic, if you shell into Geodesic, it gives you your SSH tokens,
Yeah,
so that you can still connect to your Git repository
Yeah.
and stuff.
yeah.
What can I do if I want to use Geodesic, but I don't use SSH? I use username password.
With GitHub? Well, you have a couple options. So one is the git config approach and using a credential helper. So you can have a script run with GitHub with the git cli that provides your credentials, and then you offload however you want to do it to that script. So that script could look for them in the environment. That script could look for them in a file, maybe an encrypted file that's volume mounted. It could get those credentials from 1Password using the new 1Password API for secrets. So there's a few options there. I think we have an example that we implemented a long time ago in GitHub Cloud Posse Geodesic. Now we don't really use Atlantis anymore, but I think we still have some stuff left over in here. So yeah. So in this script here, this is how we implemented it so it would work with Atlantis, which is obviously operating a headless mode, which is kind of similar to what you're describing.
Cool. I'll check that out. Thanks.
And I'll share this link here in office hours too. Any other questions?
I found that announcement, so I'm just
Oh, you did?
posting it. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Let's take a look at that.
Just posting it right now in office hours. Unfortunately, it didn't have a preview, but yep.
All right, let's see here. So AWS ACM private certificate authority introduces integration with Kubernetes.
Yeah, so it seems like it basically replaces Let's Encrypt with private CA.
Now, private CA though, yeah, okay.
Private CA is the expensive version, yes.
Yeah, exactly. That's the expensive version, which allows you to create both public and private. Or does it allow public certificates as well? I thought it was only for private certificates.
I thought it was only for private certificates too.
Yeah. So it's not, so I mean, and cert-manager is more about public certificates than private certificate. Sorry, Let's Encrypt is more about public certificates than private certificates.
It is, yeah, I realize now that's kind of one of the discrepancies.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, it's still a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But I'm sure people would be a lot happier to see it the other way around, where it's like.
Yeah, I initially
public.
thought that's what it was, and I was like, wow, that would be great. But yeah, it is a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thanks for Jonas for looking that up and sharing.
Yeah.
Am I reading this right that it only works on EKS?
Well, this announcement is for Kubernetes.
Yeah.
And ACM, I mean, you wouldn't use, I don't know. Okay, you're like, okay. So to your point, you could be running cops, for example, or Rancher,
Yeah, sure,
or something
Rancher,
like
whatever,
that.
yeah.
Is it going to work? And I don't see any mention.
Oh, I think that's fine. Yeah, I think it does only work with EKS though. I sort of unconsciously just, like couple cert-manager with Kubernetes in the first place and Kubernetes with EKS.
Yeah, there's definitely some magic things that Amazon does with EKS, like with the role binding URSA stuff.
Yeah. Does the URSA stuff work with Rancher?
No,
If you don't use Rancher, okay. If you don't use Rancher
only
under
EKS.
yeah. Okay. But Rancher you can also run on top of EKS or
That you could do that. Like,
okay.
but it must be an EKS cluster
Yeah,
that's running your workload.
yeah. Nothing like vendor extensions to make Kubernetes non-portable. Any other announcements or questions?
Yeah, I have one. Has anybody kind of or explored using HashiCorp's Nomad?
Oh, that'd be interesting. Hey, Andy, we should actually ask Taylor for a Nomad demo at some point. I think that'd be interesting for the crew.
Yeah, let's queue it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was reading into it, and the need I had for it was I have a solution right now that I'm looking at. Just it's some homegrown Docker Compose solution, but I really just want to be able to pull some containers down with like a Docker Compose up to build out a VPN solution of mine. And I was like, oh, maybe I could do this kind of, it almost seems like container orchestration, but it's their own version. But
Yeah.
I couldn't get my head around it, and I couldn't even get it running locally with like Vagrant, and I didn't feel like wasting any money in EC2 even on it. But
Is your long-term goal for this kind of a home lab that you can run containerized stuff on, or something that you deploy in AWS?
long run would be to put it in AWS.
Okay. And have you considered looking? I don't have firsthand experience and haven't played with it at all yet. Maybe Vlad could share some more about like Cloud Run, or no, AWS is a simplified way of running containers now.
Not Beanstalk,
Yeah.
right?
No, it's App Runner.
App Runner, that's what it
It's
is. Cloud Run is Google's version. Yeah.
It's nice. It's not really useful right now. You cannot connect
Nice.
to resources inside the VPC. So it's a very, very good option if you're only doing like web traffic and DynamoDB and IAM, and that's about it. And S3 maybe.
Are you talking
It's
about
gonna get VPC support.
Yeah.
App
Are you
Runner,
talking
yeah.
about App Runner? Okay, yeah, okay, yeah.
It's
Actually, I have a
gonna
buddy
get
that does some
all of
like,
those
mhm.
in the future, and I really see it being like the way of running containers. I see it overtaking ECS on Fargate around 2023-ish or something, because they're
You
Yeah.
doing
said
some really interesting capacity works. But going back to the original questions, Docker Compose has native integration with AWS. I pasted the link in the office hours Slack. Like you can just run your Docker Compose in ECS. It's natively integrated.
I was going to mention the exact
So-
same thing. If it's Docker Compose, you can do that in ECS.
I think I
haven't
briefly
tested it.
looked into that, and it just looked. Is it really as simple? It's not AWS's flavor of Docker Compose. It's like a true taking a Docker Compose and running it on ECS.
Yep, it's a collaboration between AWS and Docker, so it's all official. It doesn't support absolutely everything. I know there were some things regarding databases and storage, but it's not something that I'm keeping up to date with. But if you've just got the Docker Compose file, I definitely look at this.
Yeah, that comes to mind for another project I'm working on right now, where we tried to take Airflow and put it into ECS type of thing, but we already had the Docker Compose running on an EC2 instance. So the
AWS
ideal,
put Airflow in a container already, and it's offering a managed service around that.
oh, I did see that from Amazon, and we tried it, and there were some drawbacks that we couldn't get around, but
it's also pretty expensive. Yeah, like
for
for a low
managed,
use.
the managed Apache Airflow you're talking about, Gabriel?
Yep. The managed AWS Airflow is pretty expensive.
Yeah. Good to know. Yeah, I think at the time we tried it, they only supported like Airflow 1.10, some version of 1, but we needed at least 2. But I think now they support like 2.0.3.
Well, Well, if what happened with Prometheus is any lesson, then they with the managed Prometheus, they reduced the cost in the end by like 90% or something. So maybe the same will happen with Airflow.
How long did that take though?
Not that long. I mean,
Yeah.
in under 12 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In under 6 months, I'd almost say. I don't know.
But sometimes it's like stupidly expensive, like the VPN connections that are still stupidly
Yeah.
expensive.
Why are VPN
after-
gateways so expensive? Or internet gateways, managed internet gateways so expensive? I don't know. Or managed NAT gateways, I guess is what I'm thinking of. Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
So I can I say something?
Yeah, go for it, Yusuf.
All right, thank you. So I wanted to post this on the office hour, but I missed up with the time. Right. So I wanted to ask if there's a way to go about updating target group when you use load balancer. When you use load balancer, application load balancer to be specific on ECS. So let me give you a scenario. So I'm using the green blue deployment, right?
Yeah.
That uploads that does the whole green blue deployment for me. But I noticed that when the whole thing completed, it automatically changed the target group from the green to blue on the port 80, which is the HTTP. But it doesn't change the target group on the 443, which is the HTTPS. So that caused my services to bring 503 temporary error until I go back to that application load balancer, edit the rule, and then change it back to the second load balancer. So I don't know how that works. Should I just use port 80 and use CloudFront to undo the HTTPS, or is there a way to go around that?
Now, I think it's a little bit too in the weeds to answer on the call, but a few thoughts. The reason why I laughed earlier is because we were just dealing with something for another customer and with ECS and target groups, and when the target group names were changing, we encountered an AWS error trying to handle that, which is not what you're talking about. I thought that's what it was going to be. So as what you're talking about is using CodeDeploy with blue-green together with ECS, and you're running into a situation where there's a momentary period where you see an outage. I'm not sure what would cause that off the top of my head. Anybody else experience this?
Well, one thing that I would suggest as far as your 80 your port 80 target group, really, if you want to limit traffic to HTTPS traffic, you can create a static rule for your port 80 listener that just says redirect to port 443. That way you don't even have to worry about configuring a target group for your port 80.
That's great advice, Michael. Other than that, my advice would be, if you still have trouble on it, you can tag RB in sweetops. On our team, he's doing a lot with ECS these days and might be able to help out.
What do you call the name?
Oh, RB, like Roger, like Ronak, and I forget the last name off the top of my head here.
So I've been able to get around it right now using CloudFront. But what I noticed is recently I wanted to cut down some costs because the previous DevOps guy was using single load balancer for each ECS service. But I realized that would cost us a lot. So I'm now using one single load balancer. You know, I just put a rule to undo host, then do the redirection back to the target group to make sure I just use a single load balancer for multiple services. But because I do the green blue deployment that needs me to have two target group, one for the green, one for the blue, it's a problem on my side because once it's changed to the other target group, the one on the HTTPS remains the same. because
Yeah.
it don't change automatically.
All I know, when we implemented the CodeDeploy for ECS using Terraform, it turned out to be pretty nasty in the end, because the only way to trigger the actual deployment was a local exec to the AWS CLI. So are you using Terraform with this or something else?
Yes, I use Terraform.
Okay. Yeah.
In fact, I use the CodePosse Terraform for AWS, for ECS.
The AWS what?
The CodePosse AWS Fargate.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure what that's referring to. I don't know.
The module, the Terraform module for
Yes,
Fargate.
By
yes.
AWS?
By Cloud
Oh,
Posse.
by us. Oh,
By
okay,
CodePosse.
gotcha. Okay, sorry. It was I misheard there. Yeah. Yeah, so please reach out in the Terraform channel there with your problem, and we can tag someone on our team who can help answer that question.
All right, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Yusuf. Any other questions? Any other questions for today? Let's see what's in the chat here.
Well, are you guys listening to me?
Yeah, go for it, Gabriel.
So, yeah, first time here. This is a AWS focused question. It's more about your opinion for you guys and girls. Do you ever use AWS SSO for handling permissions? We're struggling here because permission sets are not the best way to handle permission for different squads. I know that they implemented attribute-based access control, like you can tag someone, oh, so you work for this squad, and you can tag any resource with the department tag, and this might work, but we're not very happy with SSO permissioning. So any thoughts or experience?
Well, yeah, that's kind of been our experience as well. We are just deploying AWS SSO with most of our new engagements, but there's a lot of limitations, especially around using it with EKS. And we haven't yet come up with a perfect solution. And we also looked into the attribute-based access controls and using source identity, but apparently source identity is not supported by AWS SSO. So we are still working on finding a final solution. Now, other than that, for EKS, it seems to work quite all right. What are the specific, can you emphasize again what specifically in SSO you were not liking?
No. Oh, it's more like handling different access levels for. It's more thinking that we don't want to repeat plenty of permissions. Like we have the current situation. We have a developer group, an SRE group.
Yeah.
So there's no need to grant that much of permissions. So we're trying to break permissions in smaller groups. But with permission sets, like if someone logins in AWS, the console will show like plenty of roles for they to assume. We just want to narrow down our options, and
okay.
We are trying to. We might study console.me. I'm not sure if it's a good option. So this means, as far as I know, leave SSO behind. I'm not sure if they play well together, but SSO works. I just want to avoid code permission repetition and access-based, attribute-based access control might help, but
yeah. Isn't it though, like on the back end side of the implementation, that's a little bit up to your usage of Terraform and the provider for provisioning the permission sets, and you can drive that up on your end in how you define it. without having to expect SSO to be less expressive.
Okay, and overall, are you happy with SSO?
Since I would say overall, I'm happy with the concept of permission sets relative to how it worked previously, provisioning IAM roles in an identity account and then delegating access to those in the other accounts. And that was gnarly. And we still do that actually because of permission problems with SSO. However, so I like the interface on AWS SSO. I don't like the experience of SSO for users working with EKS. I would also, there's one other app that we've been starting to use internally that's improved the process a great deal. Leap.cloud, if you listen to Office Hours, we did a segment on it where we've talked, it's come up a couple times. So this is an open source tool that makes it a lot friendlier to authenticate with AWS SSO, as well as AWS federated logins through SAML. All right. So long and short of it is the jury's still out. I don't know. We have, as recently as a couple of weeks ago, we've talked internally about like, should we just double down on our SAML implementation and make the interface feel more like permission sets under SSO and have full control? Or do we just continue hoping that AWS SSO is going to be it for us? The other limitation of AWS SSO, which is a problem for us, why we always end up implementing the federated model as well, is it only supports a single IDP, identity provider. And when we do an engagement with customers, we always provision a Cloud Posse IDP integration, as well as the customer's integration. That way we can manage onboarding and offboarding of engineers on our end without having to go through the customer.
Oh, I'll check those out. I heard about Leap, but never tried. If it's easy to just dip my toes in, I'll surely try it.
Yeah, it is pretty easy. And the founders are hanging out in the sweetops Slack, so you can reach out to them maybe if you want some demo or guidance.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing. Let's see, we got another 10 minutes or so. Any other questions? Or announcements? Give it another minute here, and otherwise we can always end things a little bit earlier today. See if any questions in the Slack here. All right, well, I think we are out of questions then for today. Thanks everyone for your time. We'll end office hours a little bit earlier here, and have a great rest of your week. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.